Hi, I'm Orcenith Smith, the conductor of the Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis, the city's largest volunteer orchestra. On Saturday, May the 17th at 7:30 p.m. at the Pike Performing Arts Center, the Philharmonic will be performing a concert including works by Beethoven, his Overture to the Creatures of Prometheus, Rhapsody Espagnole by Ravel, a new work by Jordan Jinosko entitled Three Sketches of Unblemished Earth, and Ravel's famous Bolero. We are very pleased to have the composer Jordan Jinosko with us to talk a little bit about her inspiration for Three Sketches of Unblemished Earth.
Well, so what projects are you up to today?
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking. So I just I'm starting my first full-length symphony. Uh, there's a there's a group out in there's a arts org out in London that has commissioned me to write a new piece, and it sort of goes into the history of my family's time in Korea, which is sort of exciting, and it deals with the Korean War and how that kind of impacted my mom, who was actually eventually adopted and brought to the U.S. So that's something I'm really excited about. And let's see, what else? I'm recording one of my pieces with the Symphony and the Foundation, which is a arts org out in California, and we're going to do a Grammy campaign for that. And I just got back from Carnegie Hall, hearing actually the piece that you'll be performing, Three Sketches of Unblemished Earth, which was just a really wonderful time to be there. So yeah, there are a lot of things sort of in the works, and staying busy with other commissions and things like that as well.
Well, so take me back to the genesis of Three Sketches.
Yeah, absolutely. Three Sketches of Unblemished Earth was written years ago. I had just completed my first year at conservatory at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance. And I had not yet really started applying to competitions, but I saw this flyer for a competition that was run by someone named Vanessa Porter, a violinist, and she wanted music that represented different parts of the US. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, and I had never done this before. I said, let me sit down and try to write something. So I thought immediately about the area that I grew up in, the Appalachian. I grew up hiking in, the Adirondacks, in the Catskills, in New York, in the Appalachian area. And really very quickly, these melodies sort of started coming into my mind. I was just walking around outside, actually, in the woods, while I was trying to come up with some themes, some ideas, and I was writing them down as quickly as I could. And over the course of about a month, I wrote the very first version of this piece, Three Sketches of Unblemished Earth, which would later go on to become a string orchestra version and then a full orchestra version. It's been performed in various forms throughout the years, and it's sort of evolved through lovely collaborations like the one I'm doing with you and the Phil of Indy.
Thank you for that. We notice also in reading and also hearing the music, the influence of Vaughan Williams.
Yes.
So, of course, I hear Lark Ascending, and I
Yes,
hear a lot
100%.
of beauty in your music. And so, talk a little bit about how Vaughan Williams has kind of entered your soundscape.
Yeah, thanks. So the very first, orchestra concert I ever went to was an orchestra concert where they were performing the Rochester Philharmonic, where I grew up in New York in upstate. They were performing Ray Vaughan Williams' Fantasia on a theme by Thomas Tallis, and his Fifth Symphony, which, if you're familiar with that work, is just gorgeous. It's just a really beautiful pastoral sort of thing, sort of like the Lark Ascending, in that it has both of them have elements of folk music. They have elements of pentatonicism and just this lush sort of approach toward painting pictures of landscapes, right? And I was immediately blown away. I had never experienced anything like this. The shivers down my spine, you know how it is, right? Uh, I was completely taken back. I said, I've never experienced anything like this before. and this is life-changing. I want to do that. I want to become a composer. I want to write music. I want to write orchestra music. Really became my passion from then on. I used to imagine myself sitting, at night. I would imagine myself, conducting my own music, in a beautiful hall. And I was only 13 years old at the time, but that was my dream. And so I started taking lessons, and I studied all sorts of different schools. And in a way, I still sort of feel like that kid chasing that dream. It's never died. So yeah, it's Ray Vaughan Williams has been incredibly influential, and for me, it's nostalgic now.
Yeah, I think what you've written a little bit about water, woodlands, and heights is very thoughtfully presented. So, talk a little bit about your compositional process, and then maybe if you could go ahead and talk about each of those movements.
Yeah, absolutely. So the piece Three Sketches is broken into, like you said, three movements. First one's water, woodlands, and heights. Water recalls the early morning part of the day on my trip that I did, which was a trip on the Appalachian I did years ago. I would get out of my tent in these early mornings, and I would look out, and I'd see mist and dew and fog that had settled over nearby lakes and mountains. And I was really drawn to introspection and contemplation in a way that I hadn't been before. And I hope the music captures that sense of really just this stillness, which for me is sort of hard to do as a composer, right? Because composers a lot of times have all these ideas and they want to do so much, but this is very simple and it's very gentle. The second movement, woodlands, recalls a more active time of day when I was hiking along the trail and there were, squirrels and chipmunks chasing each other's tails and running up, trees. It was really enjoyable, fun, just time with friends. And I thought, what better way to accompany that than with folksy traveling music, right? So that's why we get this sort of opening pizzicato motion, and the whole orchestra sort of participates in basically a fiddle tune, my imagination of a fiddle tune. The last movement, Heights, is my love letter to the mountainous regions of the Northeast. And it really tries to capture that sense you feel when you're looking out from a vista, right? You're looking out from the tops of hills and cliffs and mountains. And you're just in awe of the beauty of the natural world. I really hoped that specifically that this movement and the whole piece really would serve as a reminder of the beauty of the world and kind of a reminder to preserve it for future generations as well.
Well, this is the comprehensive information that I know our viewing audience will appreciate, and we appreciate very much the opportunity to do your piece. It's thoughtful, beauty, and its connections to nature. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Looking forward to it.
In Jordan Jinosko's piece, there are several beautiful violin solos. And to discuss that with us now is Mark Kavesh, our concertmaster.
It is such an honor to be seated concertmaster for this performance, where we have the opportunity to collaborate with the composer. For me, the violin solos that Ms. Jinosko composed framed the landscape, and they help take us out of ourselves and into the wilderness. At the end of the solo in the first movement, Ms. Jinosko actually writes the word foreboding in the score, which tells us that we are now in a space where nature is the powerful force and we are not necessarily welcome visitors. Musically, these violin parts borrow inspiration from both Vaughan Williams and from American folk music, American fiddle music. And both of these inspirations are filtered through Ms. Jinosko's own lens. And I think that combination is one of the aspects that makes this work so compelling.
We hope you can join us Saturday, May the 17th at 7:30 p.m. at the Pike Performing Arts Center for the Philharmonic Orchestra of Indianapolis. Tickets can be purchased at the door or at philharmonicindy.org.